Poland is on the brink of war with Russia. Explosions near Lublin, drones overhead, sabotage every day. The Kremlin has already launched its attack. Poland is switching to combat mode. Is Warsaw ready to completely destroy the aggressor? Tanks at the border, the army on high alert. This is no longer a drill. Who will strike first? Watch.
Russia has attacked Poland.
Nowadays, the more common term is hybrid war. And you could say that it's already underway because since
the moment of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, neighboring Poland has also been systematically under threat. And while previously only politicians and statesmen talked about a possible war between Russia and Poland, over time, those predictions began to come true. The climax came in September 2025 when about 24 Russian drones crossed into Polish airspace. A significant number of them entered from Belarus. 4 UAVs were shot down. Polish military officials stated that in September, the threat from Russian drones was quite real.
So far, the measures Poland is taking in response are mostly diplomatic in nature. They have not yet taken on a military character. But if we talk about the country's military leadership, they openly say that Russia is preparing for a possible attack on Poland, and Poland is also taking appropriate measures.
It's not just about drones. Recently, there have been several acts of sabotage on the railways in Poland. In particular, a section of track leading to the Polish-Ukrainian border was damaged. The country's Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, emphasized that these were acts of sabotage. According to him, 2 Ukrainian citizens are suspected of involvement in the attacks. They arrived in Poland from Belarus and managed to escape back after the sabotage.
If the Polish authorities had managed to detain them, they would have faced rather lengthy prison sentences. These are essentially people who are willing to sell themselves to Russia for money.
Polish law enforcement is convinced that the Ukrainians were hired by Russian special services and have already demanded that Belarus extradite the suspects. This chain of events culminates in an attack on the Polish ambassador Krzysztof Krajewski in Russia's St. Petersburg. When he arrived in the city to meet with Poles living there,
Poles are perceived as enemies, true enemies. And they set this group of people on our ambassador, and let's note that the police did nothing. They just watched and basically smirked. This is not just a natural outcome. I am convinced that this attack was fully planned and sanctioned by the relevant authorities, either in St. Petersburg or perhaps even in Moscow.
an aggressive group of Russian activists brought in posters with anti-Polish and anti-Ukrainian slogans and attacked the ambassador because his country supports Ukraine. The Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that at first there were verbal insults, but then there was a clear attempt to use physical force, which forced the ambassador's security guards to intervene.
Shock from the Kremlin. Putin himself admitted to his illness. This is the end of an era. The dictator is on the edge of the abyss. Horrible sights, terrifying symptoms. Enemies are dancing with joy. What has the Kremlin been hiding all this time? These details are truly surprising. Watch.
The Russian dictator has exposed himself. Putin openly says he wants to live longer. And even 150 years is not enough for him anymore.
We even set specific goals for ourselves to increase it, the average life expectancy. And we're doing everything right. It's probably possible to reach 150 years. But first of all, it will never be enough.
This statement from Putin was made at the conference Journey into the World of Artificial Intelligence. What's notable is that discussions about immortality have become a normal topic for debate in Russian society. At the conference, the first to bring up this topic was the head of Sberbank, Herman Gref, undoubtedly to curry favor with the dictator.
What do you personally think about the predictions published by the noted Mr. Ray Kurzweil, one of those very well-known technology futurist thinkers? Futurologists who say that everyone who lives through the next 6 to 7 years will have a chance not just to live to 100 and beyond, but to achieve immortality. His latest prediction is that this will happen around the turn of 2030 to 2035, approximately in 2032.
Gref asked this question to the Chinese science fiction writer Chen Qiufan, who was present on the panel. Qiufan did not give a direct answer, but immediately picked up on the topic. Bunker-like.
There was a time when people lived 20, 30, 35 years, and that was considered normal. then the average age in certain countries and on the planet as a whole began to increase. 35, 45, 50 years old. That was also considered normal. Now, in some countries, it's already 80. And we're striving for the same, where the average age for women is a bit higher, and for men, a bit lower.
Especially for Putin, that won't be enough, and he doesn't hide it. And even 150 years has already come up. It was exactly this age that the Russian dictator discussed with his Chinese counterpart at the beginning of September during the broadcast of the military parade. Their conversation was recorded completely by accident at that time.
Human organs can be transplanted continuously. The longer you live, the younger you become, and you can even achieve immortality. Some predict that this is not the case, that in this century people may live to be 150 years old.
But Putin talked not only about immortality at this conference, but also about his own health. He let it slip as if by accident that everything is absolutely fine with him.
I just had my annual checkup. It took almost 2 days.
With an overnight stay at the clinic, which was required for observation, I went there and spent the night as instructed. In the afternoon and left the next day. Thank God everything is fine. Getting such a checkup done in a minute seems like science fiction.
When your health is really good, a full body checkup is unlikely to take 2 days. But this wasn't said for no reason. Putin is trying to convince everyone that he's in good health, when in reality everything is falling apart. And isn't it a remarkable coincidence that he started talking about his health just 10 days after the internet began discussing the extremely painful appearance of the Russian dictator's hands?
Even with all those varicose veins on his hands, the most important thing is something else. When was the last time you saw Putin in a gym? We saw him a year ago when he entered the gym. Putin was in a suit. He didn't sit down. He didn't get on the exercise machines and didn't try to show us anything. In other words, that's it. Putin is finished. Putin with a bare torso, Putin on skates, Putin on skis, that's all over. His days of active sports are over. It's clear that Putin is already an old man who can't show off, can't display his body to us because it's been a long time since it was athletic.
What Putin's health is really like, of course, is unknown. But journalists have repeatedly written about the bunker grandpa being treated for cancer and about how he is regularly visited by a surgical oncologist. But let's suppose that the Russian Tsar's health is actually not that bad. That doesn't change the fact that Putin wants to live a very long life. Russian geneticists are working day and night to find a solution, and it's all official. In 2019, Russia adopted a federal scientific and technical program for the development of genetic technologies. Billions of rubles are being spent on these projects.
Endocrinologist Maria Vorontsova is involved. Yes, Vladimir Putin's eldest daughter. It is she whom the dictator has entrusted with the important mission of extending his life for decades. For example, one of the large-scale projects is called 100,000 plus me. The project is funded by Rosneft, which is now headed by another of Putin's associates, Igor Sechin. Back in the 90s, they used to carry suitcases for Vladimir Vladimirovich. As part of the project, scientists will decode the genomes of 100,000 Russians. These genome sequences will help identify genetic defects typical for the Russian ethnic group. And further, this information will help improve the health of dear Russians.
All of this is presented under the guise of caring for Russians. In reality, Putin only thinks about himself. And the Russian dictator is also afraid. He fears death and everyone around him because it is precisely those close to him who could kill him. And such paranoia could play a cruel joke on the dictator, one that the world, and Ukrainians first and foremost, will truly appreciate.
He doesn't trust anyone. And so I'm convinced that at night he locks some kind of armored door with 25 bolts and doesn't let anyone in. And that's where the hope lies. There is hope that what happened to Stalin will happen to him as well. In other words, roughly speaking, he might have some kind of heart attack and he could be saved if a doctor were called in time, but he's so afraid that, let's say, he might not be able to reach the button that opens the door from the inside, and from the outside no one would be able to get to him because the door is locked in such a way that it can't be broken down.
Shock in Moscow. Russia has no money left for new cannon fodder. Contract soldiers are running out before our eyes. The regions are in a panic. Army finances have dried up and the front is bursting at the seams. A fatal blow for Putin. Without fresh meat, everything will collapse. What awaits the occupiers on the front line? A sensation.
Putin's so-called special military operation is winding down. Russian regions have started to run out of money for contract soldiers. Officials are reporting the cancellation of payments of 1.1 million rubles, supposedly, due to the difficult budget situation, according to officials from several Russian regions. The first to stop luring potential contract soldiers with big money in 2025 was the Zabaikalsky Krai. Next, Khakassia also announced that there's no money, but hang in there. Now it's Yakutia's turn.
In Yakutia, the money for military payments has run out. The budget can't cope, said the Republic's finance minister, Ivan Alexeyev.
The problem with delayed payments beyond Baikal is so huge that after opposition channels in Russia, even Kremlin media were forced to pick up the news. The widespread public outcry forced even Russian officials to acknowledge the problem.
The men are very outraged that after signing a contract and going off to defend their homeland, they have to wait months for regional payments, the so-called lifting allowances. I won't repeat everything they wrote to me, because there were hardly any words fit for broadcast. And I understand their emotions. I'll just quote the last sentence. It's suitable for broadcast and it captures the essence of the issue. Please tell them over there that the official's response, the budget is complicated, we have no money, just be patient, does not satisfy us.
It's especially hard to be patient in such a situation for those occupiers who are already dead. The last of them, because of the refusal, their families, without the promised payments, can't even afford a proper burial.
When a cargo 200 arrives, the family members receive 100,000 from the region plus $1 million or $1,100,000. This money was enough to arrange a decent funeral for their father, brother, or husband. Today, the most they get is maybe 100,000, and that's only if they show up on time. They have nothing to bury them with. And
economists are already warning that things will only get worse from here. The Russian treasury is empty. Because of Western sanctions, the freezing of Kremlin assets, and the widespread rejection of Putin's bloody energy resources, Russia has nothing to pay its own soldiers what it owes them.
The Russian economy has entered a downward spiral of contraction, one that is already quite active, noticeable, and undeniable. And it's unlikely that it will be able to get out of this spiral easily. It's not even clear if it can get out at all.
Maybe not as quickly as we would like, but it seems that Western, especially American, sanctions have indeed broken the back of the Russian economy. In its plans and budgets for 2025, the Kremlin has clearly set its expectations too high.
They're relying on different oil prices, on a different dollar exchange rate, which simply doesn't exist right now. As a result,
there's simply no money left to pay each new soldier 2.5 million rubles for a contract with the Russian Ministry of Defense. The same goes for compensation for injuries and deaths of servicemen. Everyone who went to war hoping to make some money will now only earn themselves a one-way ticket.
Stagnation has been going on since around September 2024. So since September 2024, that's almost a year and a half. Actually, it's already more than a year and a half now that Russia's economy has been stagnant. In short, Russia's economy is not growing. How long has it been exactly? Since September, so accordingly, we're already approaching a year and a half. So the economy isn't growing, and moreover, it's actually declining. And this decline is continuing and intensifying. Moreover, the financial situation of companies is deteriorating, they are losing profits. Accordingly, corporate profit tax payments are decreasing. As a result, regional budgets are already in serious trouble because of this.
In order to somehow reassure the families of Russian contract soldiers and grieving widows, Kremlin officials have verbally promised to resolve the issue as soon as possible.
Supposedly, the Republic's government has already found a solution. The minister promised to resume the payments.
However, all of this is just empty words. After all, there is simply nowhere to get that much money to support Putin's campaign. For now, the gaps are being patched using budgets for healthcare, utilities, and education. However, even all of these combined won't cover even a third of the expenses for the special military operation. Meanwhile, Russian Z military correspondents are already loudly reporting widespread discontent among Kremlin contract soldiers. None of them are eager to die for an idea rather than for money. And on some sections of the front, Z military correspondents admit, after the news about the Kremlin stopping payments, cases of unauthorized absences and desertion have sharply increased.
That's all for now. For more hot news from the front, tune in to the next episode. Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.